Yeah, a little difference, but even with horses, you need room to maneuver, but the tanks even need more,
right,
you know?
Yeah.
And we have tank ranges and all that. So, you know, when I started this job 4 years ago, we were still doing a good deal of that training. But what has happened, and you know, as we are reminded of the events of September 11th, 6 years ago, we've really had to change the focus of our training because many of those armored cav units have gone and done security forces missions, the same with artillery folks. We really had to adapt. Now so much more of our focus at training is teaching people. We build a brand new forward operating base, which you saw when you were up there, and it really simulates living conditions in Iraq. So we help our people understand how they will live when they get to Iraq, the threats that they will face, and then they go out and then they train in those kinds of skills that they're going to need. Entry control training, which you saw, to help them understand the concerns we have for security in the area. They also get to do convoy type training so that they can learn the battle skills they need as they actually operate in the Humvees, the tactical vehicles over in Iraq. So we have really adapted everything up there to the current skill sets people need. At the same time, maintaining, you know, the other skill sets that they need to maintain.
Well, it was very impressive to me to sort of see the intensity of the training. And then also, to me, what I consider really very realistic training when we went and saw them clearing buildings, going through the IED range, talking about sort of what this type of encampment that they're now involved with, because, you know, it's much more concentrated. And in my day, we were very much dispersed and we're concerned about, you know, a different type of threat. You know, obviously this type of battle that we're fighting in Iraq and Afghanistan is much different than what we were preparing for in Europe. Have you had the opportunity to see any of our men and women in Iraq and travel over there? And can you give us any insights on how things are going there?
Sure. Yeah, I've really been had the good fortune to go to Iraq 3 different times, and most recently in February of this year. And each time I've gone, I have just been absolutely impressed with our soldiers, proud of the great work they're doing. And you know, the thing that I really take away, because we hear so much about this particular war, but I am yet to hear a soldier say to me that they don't believe they're making a difference over there. Our soldiers go over and they're great ambassadors, they get great work done, and they really perform at a very high level. In fact, we've got companies over there now that perform above the level of an active duty unit.
Really?
You know, oh yeah.
Because you know, when I was in, there was always that rivalry between a regular Army unit, a reserve unit, or a National Guard unit, and the perception was that we weren't as good.
Right. Yeah, that perception has truly gone away, because we really have officers and NCOs leading our organizations right now that have great experience. Many of them had some active duty time, but we draw on that experience, and our people over there have just been performing at a very high level. And well, it doesn't matter if they're in combat arms or they're in a combat support role, combat service support. You know, we had a transportation company, a truck company over there, and 160 people went, 30 of them got Purple Hearts.
Wow.
And they were out
that's incredible.
Facing the enemy every single day, and they were soldiers, they're great soldiers. At the same time, they delivered the materials they were asked to deliver. That was on my first trip over there in December 2004. And then they come home and they took their compound, you know, where they parked their vehicles, and they improved every bit of it, built a morale and welfare center that they left to the people that came behind them, and they left Iraq a by far better place. They left their facility a by better place than they found it. And that's just indicative of the great work that our guardsmen have been doing, particular Michigan guardsmen.
You talked a little bit about these different units that are over. So what would be classified as a combat arms group? And then you had like combat support, and then I don't remember the third classification, because you know, obviously we've got some lay people here that are watching the show and may not understand sort of the different areas.
Typically, our combat arms people, we think of infantry or the cab units, armored cab and artillery. Most of them have gone and done what we call security forces type work. And they are right out, their primary job is to go and engage the enemy, if you will. Many of them today, in fact, are working with the Iraqi police, doing Iraqi police training. But they're right out at the tip of the spear, if you will. And then, of course, we have military police companies, which might be more of a combat service support, and they are providing perhaps convoy security.
Okay. So in our sort of composure of you said there was about 9,700 National Guard. Is what, about a third or half combat arms, or how does that work?
It's about a third combat arms.
Okay.
A third combat service support, which is the MP, military police, that kind of thing, and then about a third of pure combat support, maintenance companies, transportation companies, those kinds of capabilities.
So you've got the combat arms out. Then what are the combat support people? Are they doing like? Is that mostly in the Air Guard component, or what are the?
No, that's actually the Army, and for instance, your transportation companies and your maintenance companies. And it used to be something that maintenance companies would be back in the installation, maintaining vehicles. Relatively safe job, important job, but safe. But now they're out going to where the things need to be repaired. Transportation companies, used to be they would transport from the rear to the front lines. Now they're having to drive through the streets of Iraq. Extremely hazardous, and so they have to provide for many times their own defense of their particular convoy. They're running gun trucks and doing their own internal security for their convoys.
So that would be what you talked about. That one unit that got the 30 Purple Hearts was a wow.
And they were hit by IEDs, and the list goes on. Small arms fire. So there isn't anything we do right now. It doesn't matter what your job is. When you go into theater, you're in harm's way every single day, and we don't really make a lot of. There are those distinctions in the Army, but the reality is everybody just has a different job. Everybody's in harm's way.
Going through the type of combat these young men and women are seeing, and your involvement in the military, what is different about this war than the previous maybe Afghan or Iraqi war, or the previous times in Vietnam? What's sort of different on this?
Well, I think this one in particular. It's hard to go back to Vietnam. Because it's really, I came in just as Vietnam was winding down. But when you look back, when you had Desert Storm back in the early 90s, there really was more of a force-on-force type of thing with a real clear objective, and that's a war that we could plan for and execute, and it was executed very well. At the beginning of this Operation Iraqi Freedom, for instance, that we had that element, and that was done very well. But of course, now we're into a new role where we're allowing and supporting the Iraqi government to form and develop its own governing institutions, and so it's a much different thing because the enemy can clearly identify us. We can't always clearly identify the enemy, and the enemy, we play by a set of rules that the enemy doesn't play by. And so it's a very difficult challenge. But I will tell you that our soldiers, when they get over there, become very skilled at a number of things, and they build relationships with local Iraqis so that they can kind of sort out who the good guys and the bad guys are, and they build some relationships that are very important.
You talked about that as far as the training for these young new soldiers that are coming up through the Iraqi police force. What types of training, or can you give us a little bit of overview of like how do our guardsmen teach? What do they teach these men and women that are coming up through the police?
Yeah, in fact, I have 3 companies over there right now. 2 of them are MP companies, and the other one's an infantry company. Actually, the infantry company is come home, but just recently. All of them have worked, as I said, with Iraqi police departments. They work with an international agency that provides